it lays out a very easy framework for non-academic people to understand how patriarchy plays, whether it's in media or in the state. So, and it's not as easy with the state. I know it's much more complex, but we need to begin to grapple with, how do you understand patriarchy of the state? You don't have to.
Imagine if Indira Gandhi is the prime minister.
Exactly. Or like Aruna Roy said, Jayalalitha is not a woman.
I think it's very interesting when it comes to looking at the connection of land and people, that if we are looking at those connections of who is working on the lands, are those people often taken into account? Often at a time where land claims have to be made, it's said that only the man is the farmer, the woman is not the farmer. There again, you just do away with the whole existence of who a farmer is, and it's always, again, I think it's, and so where you have frameworks, where you have words and texts of the state which are in very patriarchal nature, that's on one hand it's happening, and on the other hand, it's also manifests in the way in which everything is planned out in a manner that it comes and, it affects the woman. So most of the time, homes are raided when the men are not around. Often, I find personally in the discourses that in the very humanistic approach towards feminism, it's talking about that man equals to woman or woman equals to man, versus the other approach which is saying that let's respect diversity, which is again a different thing. But then when we're talking from the point of view of what the Indian state governments are doing respectively in terms of something which is as universal as claims on land, water and natural resources, it's very much taken from the point of view of a capitalist nature, even while the examples of the products that I'm giving, it's not that it's just that the men are working in those companies. If you look at even there are women who are there. It's just that it's being co-opted to understand that the patriarchal nature of the system and as a workforce is going on, that's like seems to be normal enough. And because you have something like that enforced upon a so-called educated and literate and a wiser enough class, it percolates down there. I'm just thinking aloud, but I don't know if that is.
I just like to make one point. I would have loved to meet that speaker who summarized patriarchy in such simple words. But yeah, I mean, he put it very succinctly. It's just man talking to man and connecting the dots between what you said and Rama, what you said. I think one attempt needs to be made is to change the language of the state or change the narrative in which patriarchy is perceived, starting with the point that she made: do not call a raped woman a victim. That is the language of patriarchy. I mean, whenever you read about rape, what do you see? You see a woman who's like covering and she's shielding her face, and she appears to be sad and shunned as if she has committed a crime. So the first attempt that needs to be made when you understand the patriarchy of a state and want to disassociate yourself from it is to change the language of the state.
I would just like to add that yes, it's man talking to man, that women have to be present in that interaction. I mean, as objects, but have to be presented in that interaction for it to be patriarchy. And to specifically address your question about how the state actually is a patriarchal agent, I was thinking, I mean, you could answer it in terms of political philosophy, or you could answer it in terms of like concrete state actors. And in the case of Haryana, we could talk about the cops, and we could talk about the courts, we could talk about the governments and cops. I mean, I was hoping that you would talk about the Rohtak shelter home, that scandal that broke out earlier this year, where a shelter home run for orphan girls was actually being used as a prostitution racket for state cops. I mean, it was something that even the highest level of cops were involved in this particular racket as clients, as hymns. Yeah. So yeah, and the codes. I mean, my fieldwork was based on the codes, and there are like 30 couples who elope and come every single day to the courts, and the message of the judges is unanimously that you are children and you shouldn't be doing that, and you should probably be going back and talking to your parents. I mean that's where your decisions need to be taken. I mean, this is state. This is not where your decisions about your private life need to be taken. So that's how I answer.
We have space for maybe just 2 comments very quickly.
So, like, make one comment. Like, see, liberal democracy, right from its inception, was very clear about the confluence of patriarchy and class. So, for Madison, for example, Madison says that when we use the word people, we mean white men with property alone. So, I think we have confusion. Liberal democracy, or the founders, or the quote-unquote founding fathers, were very clear about. So it's in popular, language and so that is an educational institution. The whole confusion is created that somehow, there is something else is happening. Like Hobbes was very clear about it. Locke was very clear about it. That is on the foundation of patriarchy. This new, like capitalism is being built, and they articulated it very clearly. So it's important to understand, that thing. And in India, it's just everything is the colonial system and colonial state is just put on top of already existing patriarchal caste society. So we are actually, and women are actually bearing the brunt of all that, millennia of oppression, really. And within that, amongst low caste, women becomes much more specific about it. So I just want to just make one quick comment. I really want to thank all the panelists, and especially want to thank Pratyush and Padma, that they really they initiated this move that we have this panel. So special thanks to Pratyush and Padma for, and rest of the speakers. And I don't mean to end the discussion, but I want to say this before I forget it.
But you have made my job of concluding this here. Thank you for that. And thank you everyone for here. But just as we leave, I really want you to go away thinking about the role of us as possibly, I think, as intellectuals. How do we involve ourselves in movements, as we were discussing, and also that I think we have spoken really enough about the enormity of the problem. No more if we stop this, no more that even if we continue discussing, it's not going to end, but let's really think in terms of solutions. I mean, the problem is huge, but let's really think about what can be done. That's really necessary. We've thought enough, let's do something. Thank you very much for the evening. Please stay warm at night.
Rama, she's come from Brown. She's rushing back to South Station. So thank you, Rama, for being with us. Thank you, Kritika.